Hi Algebra students, welcome to video 9. In this video we're learning how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So far in this unit we've learned how to solve quadratic equations using graphing, factoring, square roots, and now this is our final method, the quadratic formula. So to solve a quadratic equation in standard form, so we've seen this before, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, we use this formula, which is called the quadratic formula. This is something you're going to want to memorize. This comes up over and over again. You'll see it in geometry and in Algebra 2 and on the ACT. And to help you remember it, there's a little song. It goes to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. And it goes, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you lucked out. If we were in person, I would make you all sing that. So if you don't, if you're not too ashamed, you guys should go sing this at home. Sing it to your siblings or your parents or your cat or whatever. Memorize this formula. Okay, so I'll show you how to use this formula. There's a few steps. First, make sure the equation is set equal to 0 and written in standard form. So this is set equal to 0, it's in standard form, step 1 is good. So step 2 is just identify what a, b, and c are. So remember, a is the number in front of the x squared. If there's nothing there, it's a 1, so a is 1. B is the number in front of the x, so b is negative 5. And c is negative 36. Step 3, we substitute these values into the quadratic formula and simplify. So for this first problem, I'm going to rewrite the quadratic formula before substituting. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, and now we substitute these a, b, and c values back into the formula. So x is equal to negative, and then b is negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 36, all over 2 times a. Okay, and now we just simplify. So negative negative would be positive, so that's positive 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared is positive 25, negative 4 times 1 times 36 is positive 144 over 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, now we have to simplify a little more. We can add this stuff. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of, when you add those, it's 169 over 2. And then this is a number that we know the square root of. It is 13. So the square root of 169 is 13. And now we have this. X equals 5 plus or minus 13 all over 2. So in this step, since we have plus or minus, this is where you are going to want to break it up into two separate equations. So one of them with the plus sign and one of them with the minus sign. And then you just simplify each of those. So this first one is 5 plus 13 is 18 over 2, which is 9. And the second one, 5 minus 13 is negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. So then our two solutions here, sorry about that, you couldn't see it. Our two solutions here are x equals negative 4 and 9. All right, so let's do a few more examples using the quadratic formula. So here's our first example. Solve each equation. At first, it would be a good idea to write a equals, b equals, c equals. Later, you might not need to write those down. You might be able to just plug them straight in. But first of all, we need to check that this is in standard form. typically we have an x term in the middle, so if you want to rewrite this, we have 0x. So then the a value is 3, the b value is 0, and the c value is -12. And now we plug those all into our formula. So x is equal to negative b, so 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 0 squared, minus 4 times a times c. So 4 times 3 times -12, all over 2 times 3. All right, a little simplifying. This is just 0, so we have the positive or negative square root of 0 squared is 0, and 4 times 3 times, or -4 times 3 times -12 is 144, positive 144, and 2 times 3 is 6. So this is the positive or negative square root of 144 over 6. The square root of 144 is 12, so we have positive or -12 over 6. So then if you split into two equations, we have x equals positive 12 over 6 and x equals -12 over 6. So that is positive 2 and -2 for our final answers. Okay. Next example. This one, I hope you notice right away, it's not in standard form. We need everything to be on one side and it to equal 0. So we need to subtract 12x from both sides here. So it's 4x squared minus 3x and then equals 0. See how we have an a term and a b term, but we don't have a c term? If you want to write plus 0, you can. You don't need to. But that kind of helps us see that a is 4, b is -3, and c is 0. Now we plug that into our formula. So x is equal to -b, so -3, plus or minus the square root of b squared. Make sure you use parentheses when you're squaring a negative, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a, 2 times 4. Okay, simplifying, -3 is just +3, plus or minus the square root of -3 squared is 9, and then this part is just 0 because we're multiplying by 0, so this is just the square root of 9 over 2 times 4 is 8. We know that the square root of 9 is 3, so it's 3 plus or minus 3 over 8. Now we're ready to split into two equations, so one of them is with the plus sign, and one of our answers is with the minus sign. So in this one we get x equals 6/8, which can simplify to 3/4. And this one we get x equals 0 over 8, which is just 0. So our solution is 0 and 3/4. And just as a reminder, these solutions mean the x-intercepts on the graph. So if you graphed this equation, it would have x-intercepts of 0 and 3/4. All right, a couple more. These are different because our answers don't come out as nice, clean, whole numbers or fractions. We're going to get some square roots in our answers. So this is in standard form. We're ready to go. A equals 1, b equals 4, c equals 1. So we have x is equal to -b, -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, so 4 times 1 times 1, all over 2a, 2 times 1. Now we need to simplify. -4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared is 16, and then this would be -4, all over 2. 16 minus 4 is 12. So this is -4 plus or minus the square root of 12 all over 2. But now, we don't know the square root of 12, but we can simplify this. So remember to simplify our square roots. We make a factor tree. Factors of 12 are 4 and 3, 3 is prime. Factors of 4 are 2 and 2, 2 is prime. And then to simplify, we're looking for pairs of numbers that we can take out of the square root, and anything that doesn't have a pair has to stay inside. So this simplifies as -4 plus or minus, and then the 2 gets to come out, and the 3 has to stay inside the square root. So plus or minus 2 square roots of 3 all over 2. Now if we split into 2 equations, we have -4 plus 2 square roots of 3 over 2, and we have x equals -4 minus 2 square roots of 3 over 2. And then to simplify these, we can divide everything by 2. So you do -4 divided by 2 and 2 divided by 2. So this becomes -2 plus the square root of 3. And same thing here, divide each term by 2. We get -2 minus the square root of 3. So then our two answers are x equals -2 plus the square root of 3 and -2 minus the square root of 3. There's our two solutions. Okay, and one last problem here. Put this in standard form. That's your first step. It doesn't equal 0 yet, and we need it to. So subtract 12 from both sides. We get 3x squared minus 6x minus 12 equals 0. So a equals 3, b equals -6, c equals -12. Now we're ready to plug those in. So we get x is equal to negative, b is -6, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. All right, we have to simplify a little bit. X is equal to, this becomes +6, plus or minus the square root of -6 squared is 36, and then 4 times 3 times 12 is +144. All over 6. Okay, when you add these together, you get 180. And now we need to simplify again. So I'm going to make a factor tree for 180. Let's see, we have 18 and 10. 10 is 5 and 2. 18 is 9 and 2. And 9 is 3 and 3. So then a 3 gets to come out and a 2 gets to come out, right? And if you multiply those together, that gets you 6 on the outside. So on the outside of the square root we have 6, and then stuck on the inside is that 5. So 6 square roots of 5 over 6. And now you are ready to simplify. We need to split it into our two different equations. One of them with the plus sign, and one of them with the minus sign. Again, to simplify this, you divide each term by whatever's in the bottom, so by 6 in both fractions. So in this first one, you get 1 plus 1 square root of 5, and the second one, you get 1 minus 1 square root of 5. I'm kind of out of room here, so I'm just going to circle this. There's our two answers. All right, good luck. Your homework today is a Google form. Make sure you read the directions. There's a link for you to show your work on an online kind of worksheet so that you don't need to write all this down. That might be a little bit easier. Good luck. Let me know if you need some help.